Welcome to September. This is a really interesting time of year because it seems like depending on what we follow, we have many opportunities to have a new beginning and a new year in some ways. So we have the typical, January 1st as our marked New Year, but there's also the Astrological New Year, there's the Chinese New Year. There are many different moments to start a new beginning. And for many of us, September always meant back to school. So this is another time when it's like, okay, a new beginning, we're moving into a new mode. So what I'm kind of feeling already for this particular month is even though August for a lot of us has been like shifting, there's been a lot of waves of grief and emotion and anger, and a lot of us have been shifting in different ways, whether that be internally or externally. So a lot of people have been moving or the potential of moving, or relationships have changed and their external circumstances have been affected. But I felt like August was kind of challenging our foundation, if that makes sense. Like I think in the last video, I talked about the tectonic plates shifting. And I feel like there's still going to be some of that energy left as we move into September, but it is now our practice, our need, our focus, if we choose to actually dig deeper into our roots and our foundational practices that are going to stabilize us as we move through our external world changes and our internal world changes, so we can begin to find a little bit more harmony within ourselves and a little bit more emotional stability and even physical stability beneath our feet. So some of the things that came up for me in August, it's really been a lot about expansion in a lot of ways. And I wrote a post about this too. And earlier on, I think I had spoken about a lot of my old childhood trauma that needed to come up and out. So a lot of my summer has been practicing, or I should say, processing a lot of those emotions that came with it and almost reliving those experiences. But in a lot of ways, it was no longer about pushing it away or resisting the discomfort. It was more about acceptance of, okay, these things happened to me. They were not what should happen to a child or any child, but almost creating a container of compassion for all of it, as challenging as that is. And we could never really get rid of our external circumstances or what happened in the past. It's all about, being able to sit with it, to be able to integrate it, and to move through it. A lot of it is really deeply accepting it. So even when things come up, just know that even if you're in a negative mindset or you feel like you have a lot of explosive emotions coming through, a lot of times we judge ourselves and, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this, I shouldn't be experiencing this. And sometimes we just have to say, that's okay. That's okay. We are allowed to have emotions that are other than, joy, happiness, sunshine and rainbows, perfection. Life is messy. And if you're doing any sort of self-healing or healing trauma, it it's a messy process. So give yourself a lot more grace and compassion. So I was learning through the month of August that I was always trying to keep myself in a box. Like if I want to please people, if I want to be a good girl, if I want to be the healer or the guide for others, I have to be these things and I can't be these things. So I had opportunities to move into my joy, going out to an event and dancing. And, the first thing that came to me was, oh my gosh, was I too much? Right? Like I should be pulling back. I shouldn't be having so much fun. Right? And then that's a self-imposed limitation. Like my life can't be fun if I'm going to be this person. And also had opportunities for a cold plunge and a sweat lodge and different things like that. So these things have been, challenges for me to move through a lot of discomfort. Whereas before, I would always sort of avoid that edge. And our challenge in a lot of ways is to break through those limitations of, how we feel safe, how we think we should show up in the world, trying to stay within the confinement of other people's expectations of us. But life becomes so much fuller if we can embrace ourselves as this and that and many different things in between, right? And it's not always going to be joy all the time. It's not always going to be grief, sadness, anger, resentment all the time either. A lot of times it is ripples. A lot of times it is waves, and these things are always moving through us. So part of our challenge is to actually find some kind of grounding and stability in our body, or grounding that we can come back to when we have these experiences. So I'm reaching outside of my comfort zone, but can I also bring myself back? Can I bring myself back to stability? But then can that, with these challenges, with these new beginnings, with these new experiences, can you let yourself actually grow that stable foundation of what is and can become safe for you, right? So I hope that makes sense. So even if, your life is shifting in different ways, even if it is uncomfortable internally or externally, can you accept it all? Can you embrace it all? Can you know that you are human and not less than if you are going through some challenging times? And can you give yourself space to love yourself through it? A lot of us didn't have that safe container, or, a space where we knew we were loved or truly cared for, and giving yourself that space where you can be soft, where you can let go and just trust that, you have the roots, you have the family, the community, even if it's chosen family and community, that can support you. So hopefully some of this rambling hits home for some of you. So don't be afraid to, even if it's sometimes like dipping a toe outside of that comfort zone, taking up space. I know I talk sometimes a lot about boundaries, and sometimes it's also breaking those self-imposed boundaries too, right? Okay. I'm going to pull a few cards just to see what else is coming through and what messages are coming for us. So that one fell out. I'm going to put that one aside. What needs to be shared with the collective? Okay. I'm going to pull all three before I start talking and discussing. This is interesting. Very interesting. I like to just build the suspense and not give you any information as I pull these cards. All right. Interesting. Okay. All right. So the first card that I pulled was, pardon me, the Hanged Man. So this is sort of like a feeling of stuckness. And I was literally just talking to a friend of mine before I started this recording, and we were just talking about being in this place of, you know, there's so much happening like within us, and things are shifting, and we're provided with these opportunities to expand in some ways, but you know, the things that we are wanting to bring into our lives, and you know, with some of the work that our mind says we should be doing, aren't happening. So if there are things that you're like, yes, I want this to happen, yes, I want this to move forward, and you're like, but it's not happening. It's like, it's time to actually just let yourself be still. And if you've had a crazy month, again, internally or externally, it's time for stillness, and it's time for rest. You might not be able to see the text on this particular card. The light here always reflects quite heavily on these, but this is literally saying rest. Like it is time to rest. And this is, and you might not be able to see this either, but this is like an oyster shell, and there's a pearl within the middle. So this is like kind of that saying where it's like, you know, good things take time, you know, and take the time to process and rest and uncover that pearl of wisdom, or what is that thing that I really want to do or share, or you know, what is growing within me, and not rushing that process, right? So the card that fell out, which I want to include and talk about too for a moment, is Eight of Wands. So even within like the rest and the stillness, and maybe even the feeling of stuckness, we might feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not moving forward, nothing is happening, nothing is changing for me. And then here, Eight of Wands comes in, and for me, this is like a strike of lightning where like something suddenly changes, and like all of these wands are coming together, and it's wood, it's potential, it's fire. So there's this like sudden like ignition of passion or something new. So it might be that like, okay, I'm resting, nothing's happening, you're like, oh, I'm so tired of this, and then suddenly everything comes together. So again, this is also like hyper focus too, right? So like the more you are stepping back and going inwards and taking time for yourself, you know, you are getting clearer and clearer on how all of your passions, all of who you are, all of what excites you and lights you up is all coming together. And it might be like suddenly a new idea or a new spark that just ignites everything, and everything kind of like lines up for you. So that's very possible. And then finally here, we have Spirit of Metal. So this is spiritual harmony. So this is saying too, like through all of this, like we've gone through quite an upheaval over the past months. And I know that's not just me. I've spoken to many others that even took time off social media, just kind of shut everything down. So like, I need to be looking after me. And so I feel like we've been like digging up and unrooting and, like letting things go. But then there's also that reciprocity of like, what are we taking in? What is coming in its place? And sometimes when I see spiritual harmony, or these particular spirit cards, because there's mental, there's physical, there's emotional, for instance, spirit is like, this is very much like divinely led. Like there is a purpose to all of this. So be like really be in trust with this process, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's bringing up grief, even if it's uncertain, even if you don't know what is coming in the place of everything that you've let go of. Just trust that that is happening for you, and spirit really has your back with all of this, right? So yeah, September is going to be, I think, an interesting month of, again, things I feel like they're still kind of under the surface. Is going to be, a current of movement, but it is our challenge to embrace our stillness, our grounding practices, our ability to just stick with the inner work and get clear and trust that our foundation can hold whatever changes are happening. So I think roots are really important. Community is really important. Paying attention to either who's around you, how you're looking after yourself, even what kind of information you're taking in. Like, does this make me feel good? Is this aligned? So you might even feel like you want to take time away from certain people or social media for a period of time, and that might be necessary just to shut down for a little bit. So hopefully this makes sense to you all. You can always ask questions below. Let me know how you're doing. And if you do feel like you need some support, my membership, the Soul Medicine membership, is shifting with new content this month for September. So each month you actually get your own mini reading. There's meditation practices, there's movement practices that are some movement, some yoga-like, journaling, an ability to do your own card spread for the month, and as well as some live sessions, which again, I'm pulling cards, I'm doing a distance healing session, so it's helping us all get aligned. And so you have time to do things on your own time, but you also have that live community as well. And for me to have, people around me that I know have my back has been so hugely imperative for me to get through these last few months. So if you really feel like you need that support in some way, please check out the Soul Medicine membership. It's geared more towards the empathic and sensitive women. So it's our practices to go within, to put ourselves first, to learn how to process our emotions, rather than feeling like you have to carry everybody else's stuff all the time. So it's becoming a really beautiful collective and a space for us to be seen and heard and really belong. So consider that if that is something that you might need right now. We all need support, and there's no harm or shame in just saying, I need community. I need people around me who get me and understand me, right? I need that too. So thank you for listening in. Let me know how your month goes.